Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co hostess, Anna, and I'm here with.
Hey, grieflings and frightlings, it's Margaret, and boy, do Anna and I have a howling good movie. Maybe not good, interesting. I don't know. We'll get into it. Anna, what are we talking about today?
Yes, it's definitely an experience. We are talking about the new Wolfman that recently came out. Before we
Yes.
get too far into it, there are some different types of triggers and themes that we see. So, of
Mhm.
course, isolation, as well as familial relationships, um, parent child relationships, uh, trauma in terms of generational trauma. There's not really a lot of blood, but there are a few scenes that are a bit bloody. What else?
There's the dead deer and self harm. Those are the notes that I made. And as you're talking about, right, the family trauma, I'm curious if you believe like that's what this movie is about, because I wrote down one of the quotes. Like the dad tells the son, or no, the daughter, I believe he's talking to the daughter, sometimes you're so afraid of your kids getting scars that you become the thing that scars them. And I feel
Mhm.
like that is what this movie is about. And I'm also really curious what we'll get into it, because I'm pretty sure you have some thoughts about lycanthropy, or what was it? What they call it? Hill fever.
Mhm. Yeah, so to me, what this movie was about, it was about 90 minutes too long. So it was
Not your favorite
not my favorite.
lycanthropy movie.
Yeah,
If we
everyone,
could call it that. I don't
yeah,
think
I
it
don't
is.
think it followed the folklore at all. And anyone who's listened to our cast knows that I'm an avid lycanographer. Um,
Oh, I
in
love that
ter-
term.
oh, thank you. Just in terms of folklore, history, film, art, all of those things. So something deeply connects me on like a visceral level with the trope of the lichen, right? So for this, it almost reminded me of the Celtic Wolver, which is very much a different tale in and unto itself. I would encourage you to read it if you've not. I It's just very different, but it is closer to what I felt I was watching. I searched and searched and searched, and Margaret, let me know if you found anything. I could not find anything specific to shifting only into a wolf, not under a full moon, from a bite or scratch in folklore. I was looking through indigenous, gypsy, Afrikaan, all sorts of folklore, and I did not find anything that was very specific. I found a lot of shapeshifters where you could shift into anything, but that's something different. And so for me, it was very odd from the folkloric perspective because I didn't have anything to really base this on. And so I felt a bit challenged. And also, the original Wolfman film, very different
Hmm.
um, than this one. What are your thoughts, Margaret?
I really like. I am in agreement with you, and maybe it got lumped into being closer to a folkloric horror tale that's not a folkloric for horror tale. I think one reason people that enjoy folklore horror is because it connects us
Yes.
to folklore too. So it
Mhm.
had the isolation, which is part of folklore. Another part of folklore, like you just touched on, is this connection to indigenous beliefs of the inhabitants of the land,
Yes.
which is often also something rural. So we're
Mhm.
rural, we're isolated, and then these beliefs. We could say Midsummer
Mhm.
had folklore. Ari Aster was able to create that in this place that we said, okay, this is folk
Yeah.
horror because you've given us the community. This story
Mhm.
didn't give us the community. It gave us like a basic, like, oh yeah, well, this
Mhm.
happens sometimes. The world, it didn't feel like the world was built for it to hold
Yeah.
that. Just here's this information I'm going to give you so I can tell you this story
Mhm.
that it's confusing. You get bit, you get
Yeah.
scratched, and then you're going to have this, and then you're going to become this person
Mm-hmm.
that is kind of like a Hills Has Eyes kind of person. You're just going to live out and then
Mm-hmm.
be known,
Well,
like scare the locals.
yeah. And I think from a trauma perspective, it really applies, right? Because the dad knows about the trauma, that's
Mm-hmm.
out there, or the wolf-faced dude that's out there, and he wants to go and find it, right? So how many times have we heard someone tell us something traumatic, we're aware of it, it's this macabre need and want to understand what they're going through, right? So he then has that opportunity, he finds this wolf person, he then becomes one, and then passes it on to his son, whether intentional or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from the trauma perspective, I think that that really applies um, in that way, but I just don't think it aligns with traditional werewolf themes because, here we are, um, the son is not out under the full moon. It's not a traditional werewolf attack. He's not drinking out of a wolf's paw print. These are all things that will cause you to become a werewolf. Also, the transformation is atypical of what really happens. Like, if you look at a werewolf attack, you're going to have nightmares, you're going to have all of these somatic things happening. It's 3 nights a month, right? You're not relegated to this new body and new life forever. It's 3 nights a month essentially, and so to me it missed the mark because I'm very aligned with the stereotypical werewolf lifestyle. What are your thoughts in terms of how the movie relates to generational trauma and just grief in general?
Yes, great question. And thank you for sharing. And I'm with you. If Bill, and we can go also with The Beast Within. Here's these two movies
Mm-hmm.
that are trying to take folklore, lycanthropy, and create a story, which can
Mm-hmm.
happen because they're already, we could say, if you're aware of, if you have generational trauma, this is something you're going to have to deal with, and grief that goes along with that. The Howlings, it feels like, are able to do this. These two
Mm-hmm.
films are like, I want to make a movie about generational trauma. Let's use werewolves, and is not able to. Or Hill Fever. Okay, that's great. You want to create something around Hill Fever.
Yeah.
Make it different than a werewolf, because that muddied the plot. That made it
Mm-hmm.
confusing. And like, I appreciate trying to go over generational
Mm-hmm.
trauma in a horror film. This one, it missed, to me, it
Yeah.
missed the mark. Like The Taking of Deborah Logan, Relic, two movies that go into generational trauma and are able to
Mm-hmm.
do it. Also, while talking about grief with dementia.
Yes.
This movie, I felt like, okay, you're trying to do it and
Mm-hmm.
you're
Yeah, it's just not
missing some
there. Yeah.
things. Like, it was too, like,
Mm-hmm.
dad's gonna be the caregiver to the child, but then
Yeah.
mom's gonna show up and be the rescuer. I was like, what?
It just didn't make sense. And
Yeah.
I think for me, there were so many like inspiration undertones from other movies. Like the end of the film reminded me of The Fly,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yes.
the Jeff Goldblum Fly,
Mm-hmm.
particularly. Um, it just wasn't, it didn't quite come up to my standard, putting it politely. And you're right, it's very confusing because we have the father who identifies and is the primary caregiver for the child. And then all of these roles kind of shift and are different. And it doesn't quite make sense. And I also think that part of rural life is you have to learn to be tough because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time you are kind of on your own. You have to figure things out yourself. I don't even necessarily feel like his dad was that mean. from my perspective, he's trying to make sure that his son is aware of his surroundings and doesn't get hurt. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So I think there was no real scene that alluded to them having a severely fractured relationship other than the fact that he got the heck out of there as soon as he could. But a lot of people who grow up on a farm or in rural situations get the heck out of there when they can, because it's either that life or you have to create another one.
Yes. Ooh, I love how you touch on that, and that we didn't get enough backstory to be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what is going on? What was the fracture? Even if it was like, my dad and I got into a fight. I blame my
Mm-hmm.
dad for my mom's death.
Yeah.
I just don't like him. I just didn't like rural
Mm-hmm.
living, and I didn't want to be reminded of it. Even those things
Mm-hmm.
would have helped us, and we didn't get that. We just know that him and dad aren't talking, and they're going to go to the house that he thinks he kind of remembers to get to, but he's kind of lost. And then he meets his childhood friend that he doesn't realize it's his childhood
Mm-hmm.
friend, and just all these mishaps.
Yeah.
And even when the friend's like, we don't stay out after night, alluding to werewolves,
Yeah.
the sun goes down, but yet he gets in the van with them, and now it's dark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, if you don't go out after night, why were you out that close to dark on foot? And now you're getting
Mm-hmm.
in a moving van, which I'm assuming is just right up the road. And
Yeah.
now you're crashing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It just, a lot of it didn't really quite add up. Um, it was just very different, and we never find out what really happened to the mom, if she was dead or if she left.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know the backstory for that either. And also the flashback when he's a kid and they're going hunting. They go hunting, but they leave the dog home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was very odd.
And they're still attacked during the day. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't go out after night. They're still attacked during the day.
Yep.
So there were just all these
Mm-hmm.
plot holes. I feel like we had our problems with the Beast Within, and I prefer the Beast
Yeah.
Within to this one, because
Given
the
the
Beast
choice, yeah.
Within tried to put too much into the film. This one feels like it didn't, like, has the opposite problem of the Beast
Yeah.
Within. The Beast Within was like, I love all these, I'm gonna cram it into my movie. And this one was like, I need somebody to show him how to get to his dad's house, so I'll put this
Yeah.
guy here. And I need to introduce my killer, but I'm not gonna. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you caught it. There's a scene where like his, like, I think the creature like grabs through a door and like pulls his leg through the door, the wife's leg. Later on, that door is fine. That door
Oh,
does
no.
not have a hole in it, because
Oh,
we were
yeah.
watching. I'm like, wait, I thought that happened.
What a blooper. Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought it was a doggy door because they had a dog when the guy was a kid. Yeah, that's quite a blooper to leave in, but it just, yeah, it just wasn't where I think we needed it to be. But with that, if you could change the movie in some way, shape, or form, what is the top thing that you would change about it?
That's a great question. If I want to go the folklore, or
Mm-hmm.
I went the folklore route, I would really research, and maybe not even folklore. We can say that places have known to have disease. So I could
Mm-hmm.
go the disease route if I wanted to go the hill fever route and say this
Yeah.
is what happened, and really lean into how people change, how they transform, and then how that added to generational trauma. Now, how the family line has this generational trauma from past family members that have developed hill fever and then hurt
Mm-hmm.
their family members. What about you?
I think I would also change the trope. Um, I was talking to a friend about this. We agreed that the closest to, a traditional horror trope, it almost was like they were goblins or ghouls.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe going the ghoul route might have been more in line, because they come out all the time. They eat people, they attack humans, and they're more malicious in character. So I think that that might have been a better trope to select for the movie.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know either. I want to ask you which character you most relate to, but there aren't many to choose from.
No. And the characters are not, I feel
They're
like
not.
we're in agreement. Like they weren't developed enough and they were
Mhm.
too, it was almost like we were being set up not to like mom.
Yeah.
And then it flips to where we don't like dad, we like mom, and
Mhm.
it just felt muddy. So I'm wondering if in creating this film, maybe they're trying to capture how people are muddy, how we as people can be likable and unlikable. And again, I'm all for that in horror movies. Pick your lane, commit to your lane.
Yeah.
What are you making a movie about? If we want to go werewolves, look at Ginger Snaps. It feels like somebody
Mhm.
was like, I want to make a movie
Yeah.
about female puberty and I'm going to bring in the werewolf theme. That movie does a beautiful job of bringing that
Yes.
together. Where if you want to do that, just give it some more fun, like nurture it.
Yeah.
It's like people like, I want to have this baby, and then they just have it and throw it out to the world without
Mhm.
nurturing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I think, yeah, it's just not enough development. I can't even, usually I say I relate to the animal. I don't even know if I relate to the dog because I just don't know enough about any of them. And I think it had potential to be something, but it just didn't quite make it. But in terms of it being something that opens a forum for talking about generational trauma, that is an opportunity. So for, us, we do specialize, we're thanatologists. So oftentimes we talk about thanatology and movies on the podcast. And generational trauma applies to how we deal with grief and loss too. It is not just something that we think of in terms of household abuse. There are so many other things. For instance, someone in your family dies, and well, I go eat 12 pizzas because I watched my parents eat 12 pizzas when someone close to them died, or, that's just what we do. That's how we deal, quote unquote, deal with things when you're not really dealing with it. You're masking it with some other behavior that's learned.
Ooh, I appreciate that. And it feels like this movie's touching on trauma, dad's
Mhm.
trauma from his dad, because we don't know
Yeah.
if dad has trauma from his
Mhm.
dad. And not to keep comparing it to The Beast Within, this is
Yeah.
just the most recent werewolf movie
Mhm.
we both watched before watching Wolfman.
Yeah.
And The Beast Within was definitely generational trauma because
Mhm.
Kit Harington's character is telling his child about his dad, about his grandpa, about how there is this trauma that
Mhm.
the men are not good men. And we see that in this one. I'm going to say dad has unresolved trauma from his childhood. We
Yeah.
don't know what that is. And
Mhm.
then he's like, well, I don't want to traumatize you, missing that you're traumatizing your child because you're not dealing with your own trauma. So I'm going to say this movie tried to touch on trauma and didn't. And I love how you bring in the thanatology point. Dad's way of dealing with grief, it seems like, is to ignore it. And that was
Mhm.
probably his dad's way of
Yeah.
dealing with grief because we don't know what happened to
Mhm.
mom. We know dad is grieving probably his career. We get that
Yeah.
sense that mom is more successful than he is, and he's not dealing with it. And the child is witnessing all of this and developing her own trauma because of it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too that the father of the dad, he had what I believe was a military service tattoo on his forearm. So he may have been dealing with PTSD or combat shock or something that was never addressed or resolved. And, you know, be careful in the woods. It's wild out there. Could have had a much deeper, significant meaning of which we'll never know, but that may have played a role in terms of how he was raising his son as well.
Yes. Yeah. And we don't know because this movie
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of holes in it and did not fill those holes for us and left more questions than answers. Even if you want to make a transformation movie, we need more filler information. The Fly does a wonderful job about transformation. American Werewolf in London, a wonderful job. Ginger Snaps. Here are these
Yes.
movies that we understand the transformation because we were given that information. This we're like, okay, he has hill fever and people go crazy and then just attack people like they're like a wolf, and you want to talk about trauma and
Mm-hmm.
you're not delivering.
Yeah.
And even again, taking of Deborah Logan, Relic, movies that touch
Mm-hmm.
on trauma. I know you haven't seen She Will. That's another movie that touches on trauma and gives you that information. So you're like, okay, I get how this relates to what's happening. And
It
this
just,
movie,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and listeners, hey, if you're listening to this and you have some insight into the film, please comment. Let us know. We
Yes.
would be very much interested in some more information. It's I think that maybe the movie just kind of fell into the bin of let's remake something else as well. I don't know if maybe there was some sort of studio competition between the new Nosferatu and the Wolfman remake, and it was like, hey, they're making Nosferatu, we better find something to remake as well, or if anything kind of happened on that end. But it just it feels like production writer director watched Beast Within, they watched The Fly, and then they're like, okay, here. And it just was not. If you liked it, great. I'm glad. If you're listening and you loved it, you connected with it. Not everyone connects with everything in the same way, just like not everyone works through their grief experience and their grief journey in the same way. So different perspectives are always welcome and respected and appreciated.
Yes, yes, yes. And please share them with us because we want to hear, we want to be like, oh, okay, we can see that. And listeners that have been listening, Anna and I each have a type of horror movie that we gravitate towards. We also geek out on things like folklore. So we do we feel a bit gypped when we're like, oh my gosh, here's this movie about this. And you didn't deliver. If you had just said, I'm a movie about, again, hill fever, okay, great.
Yeah.
Like cabin fever, we know this is a movie about basically the zombie apocalypse. Even if we didn't know it was zombies, we know that it's a movie about you're gonna get sick
Yeah.
and you're gonna kill people and die.
Yep.
Is it zombies? No, or is it just people dying,
It's
getting
just
sick and
like
dying?
infectious
Yeah, okay.
disease.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's infectious disease.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been better as an infectious disease film, I
Yes,
think.
it would have. And especially if there would have been more characters that it could have spread to. I mean, they really could have done a lot in that way.
Yeah.
Or, even if they did like the Goblin route, a whole secret society and something for us to latch onto. But yeah, the disease, I mean, that could have really just taken off quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That could have been the story right there. Watch out. Then we
Yeah.
wouldn't have to worry about being out after night. Just been like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
there's some people out here that are sick. They have hill fever.
Mm-hmm. You gotta
They're
watch out.
acting weird. Stay away.
Absolutely. Well, and the last few movies that we've spoken to in relation to characters that come from folklore, I do think that we have been tough on, but it is because we have really high standards. We do have some other folkloric creature film cast episodes coming where we're a bit more enthused about the films themselves. So definitely stay tuned. And remember, eat your coffin cookies, drink your bruja brew, and howl at the moon, even if you only have hill fever and you're not a real werewolf. Until next time.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, comment. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.